Welcome to the Conscious Eating Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Nancy Kroll. I'm super excited to have with me today Dr. Kat Meyer. Dr. Kat is a licensed relationship therapist, sex therapist, yoga teacher, and Reiki practitioner, dedicated to evolving the relationship we have with sexuality and our bodies. Hi, Kat. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for
I'm
having me.
super excited. Yeah. So I just want to let everyone know I've been literally trying to get with Dr. Kat for months. And I've been really wanting to talk to someone about the sensuality aspect and libido and all of this, how it pertains to women's health, because I think this is something that a lot of practitioners are not really addressing, and I think it makes a huge impact on our quality of life. Especially, a lot of women that might be watching this might already have hormonal imbalances that already naturally decrease their libido, right? And then it's like if you've had a child, that can kind of add to it. And you brought up the topic of the empire woman, or well, can you describe that again? Because I loved that description.
Yeah, for all the women who are building their own empires, who are building their queendoms, who want everything. You want the family, you want to make corporations, you want to make all these big things, this accomplishing mentality. And as a result of it, a lot of us are losing our ability to be in our bodies, or the sensual aspect of ourselves, or we come home and we're exhausted, our adrenals are fatigued, and we're like, baby, I'm too tired. I don't want to have sex tonight. And we just go straight to bed.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about this and talk about how people that are watching can even shift some of this, right? So we're going to have some practical information of how they can start to shift this. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. And given our cultural conditioning, what are the top contributions to the women's loss of libido and sexual desire?
So as you talk about the nutritional aspect of it, right, and the diet and the adrenal fatigue, and I talk a lot about the lifestyles that we're leading. So in our society, it's very much based on this achievement-oriented, how much can I produce? How much can I do in this lifetime? Whether it's revolving around our worth, we attach our achievement to worth, or that we just want to be able to do everything and be everything and have it all. And as a result of it, we're stressing ourselves out. We are overworking ourselves. We're attending to this one particular part of ourselves, this work part of ourselves, and then we forget about all these other aspects of ourselves. We say, I can see myself as this CEO, but I can't see myself as a sensual woman, as a soft, feminine woman. I have to be strong. I have to be accomplishing something, but I can't allow myself to just surrender. And along with that, a lot of us are trying to multitask. What we know in the female brain is that we do have this incredible ability to hold multiple things at one time and to be able to shift from one to the next. So we can accomplish these things. Amazing. But that does not lend to our ability to be in the body. We perpetuate this headspace, and it also does not help us with orgasms or with pleasure. The experience of pleasure in the body, because we're in this like, gotta do my laundry, and then these are the things I need to get from the grocery store, and then I gotta take my kid to school, I gotta bring my kids lunch because they forgot it.
Yeah.
And then we're in that space, or then we're processing things with our partner, or we're doing this, but then we aren't actually in the feeling aspect of our body. So when
I love this. Can I just interject just for a minute? Because my practice has been really evolving into focusing. I mean, I do a lot of the physical stuff too, but states of being it's like so imperative. And what you're describing to me is like, we get so stuck in the yang masculine of doing, right? That we're not allowing ourselves to sink into that yin feminine, which would be more of that being state. Am I understanding you right?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And even with what's been perpetuated, this idea of the masculine society of, achievement orientation, if we bring that into the bedroom, then we're also perpetuating this performance anxiety, because then we get into this state of the bedroom and we're like, oh, I have to have the best moves for my partner. And like, it's all about how can I give them the best experience. and we can get anxious when we're, you know, having when we're on top, and then we're like, I don't know what to do up here. Or we're like, what do I do next? Or do I hold this position? Or do I look good in this position? Or do I look fat? Or this kind of this, that, or the other. And it again moves away from our pleasure and what we need and what makes us feel good. And it just becomes, again, what can I do?
Exactly. And what is interesting, I think I read somewhere that a woman cannot be in a stress state. So we automatically go into parasympathetic when we orgasm?
So the sex cycle is actually it's a combination of both the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system. We have to have the
Okay.
sympathetic system to be able to get the excitement going, and we do release the same hormones that you would in fight or flight response. But then we also have the parasympathetic system that helps us to be able to relax into the body so that we can orgasm. If we think about an orgasm is a contraction, right, of the muscles. Now, if we're in a state of stress already, then the body is clenching, which makes it more difficult for the orgasm to happen. So when we can a lot of times see when we're stressed out, women who especially are empire builders, they oftentimes will develop a hypertense pelvic floor. And with the hypertense pelvic floor, that's a pulling up of the basket of muscles that are there. It impacts our ability to have orgasms. So for women who have never experienced an orgasms or who have trouble with experiencing them, and they're seeking them out, a lot of times I'll have them drop into their bodies and see whether they're clenching there in the pelvic floor or not. This also results in painful sex as well. And then we'll look at lifestyles to start with. You know, what is your lifestyle? What's the daily schedule look like? You know, how many things we've got going on, and also mindset. You know, if a woman is seeking out an orgasm, and understanding what does orgasm mean for you. And a lot of times that we tie self-worth to an orgasm, or we tie, you know, I'm not good enough lover for my partner, which again is perpetuating that for this other person, or that performance aspect of it, that we can begin to, you know, these emotional and these mental constructs we've developed, to untangle those so that we can enjoy sex again and move away from the achievement oriented of orgasm, and just be in more of this like, well, what's the journey? What's the pleasure along this whole experience, instead of just the end.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a microcosm of a macrocosm life lesson, right? So I'm wondering, when you work with women, what sort of transformations do you see in their own health and lives when they're able to drop into this sensuality?
Oh my gosh, so much. And I work with a lot of women who I'm describing, you know, this CEO, this power woman, and we don't want to throw that part away. We love that part of her. But then we also have to work through these constructs of, you know, things like to be soft is weak, or to be emotional is weak, or I'm not, you know, I have to have these things in order to be of worth to anybody or to myself. And so I help women to start with mindfulness practices and relaxing into the body, because again, when not only does that impact our orgasms to be relaxed into the body, but it also opens our sensory receptors. So we become more sensitive when we relax into the body. So if we're constantly, you know, on our computers or constantly doing all these calls, we're creating more of this upper head space. You'll feel the pelvic floor tighten up, but then to practice relaxing into it, to practice relaxing the belly, this deep belly breathing, to practice more of this, I'll get into that, but awareness inside of the body helps us to be able to not only change our sex life, but it impacts the whole rest of our lifestyle as well. Now we start giving ourselves space for ourselves. Now we start carving out time, because we realize that quietness helps our productivity and other aspects of our lives. It's not just focused on this one. It's not just mutually exclusive to just the bedroom.
That's so powerful. I have to like say that I've personally experienced this, the dropping into the pelvis was like a game changer for me. Like I always mentally, because I've been a yoga teacher for over 15 years, and I've done vipassanas, and I've studied all this stuff, but it was still very cerebral on some level. And it wasn't until I realized that dropping into my pelvis is what allowed me to be embodied.
Oh yes.
And yeah, so like now it's this like moment by moment practice. Like if I feel myself tensing up, I'm like, no, just drop down, right? And that really allows me, I know, just like personally rooting myself into whatever's happening in the moment.
Bingo. Yeah. I once had, the first time I recognized that was my teacher, one of my Tantra teachers from years ago. He was like, we were sitting in meditation, and he was like, the best lesson you'll ever learn in this life: relax your ass. And I was just like, relax. And all of a sudden I bust out laughing because he was so true. And all of a sudden I dropped right in. And it was like a feeling of like, here I am, I have arrived. I am here with myself. And it was so profound, yet so simple, right?
Yeah.
I'll say another one that was, because I've also been teaching yoga for 10 years. And it's interesting to see my progression of yoga, because I started teaching a very fast paced yoga Pilates. And that's what was popular at that time. But I realized that I was perpetuating this heady space. I was even in the teaching role, I was like, okay, this pose and this pose and then this pose, but I wasn't actually dropping into the body to feel that. And now the way I teach yoga is a very ultra slow, still hard because you move so slow. But when we do that, we can develop a better interoceptive awareness, which is the awareness from inside the body, instead of this outer awareness or this objectification of our bodies. We can't hold both of the awarenesses at the same time. We can either feel from the inside and be aware of that, or we're aware of how we physically look, or how we look in comparison to other people, or we're aware of like things going on around us. And so the more we develop this internal, then we can help to combat that external, which actually impacts our libido as well. Body image.
That's powerful. So the way that you're using yoga in this regard too would be having a more mindful practice rather, or, that's how I evolved too. I did like more Ashtanga Vinyasa. It was very physical, very yang, right? Masculine energy. But you're saying like by slowing it down and bringing that awareness inward, it's just kind of strengthening the same mindfulness practice.
Absolutely. And it brings you into that belly, the breath. We talk a lot about, focusing on your breath. And that's a fascinating one too. I'm going to tie it back to what I was talking about. Again, the empire builders, women, these powerhouse women, in that anxious feeling, or not anxious, the more headspace, the ungrounded, often ungrounded experience that we have. When we drop into that breathing and we slow it down and we relax the belly, which what we know is the abdominal muscles also connect with the pelvic floor. We hold so much emotion and in our gut. It's got the most sensory receptors there in the gut. So when we start exhaling and feeling that belly balloon out with our diaphragmatic breathing and pulling it back in, it can bring up a lot of anxiety for us, because there's this level of letting go there, or pressing out. And now all of a sudden we are somatically, we are physically combating all of those messages that tell us that we have to have flat stomachs, or that we have to be in control, or we have to be tighten up. And now we're what my clients often feel is when they do that, the anxiety starts picking up, and then these thoughts of don't let go, tighten up, and So by practicing those and by practicing that interoceptive awareness and more of the internal body, we are reconditioning ourselves in that process.
As so powerful. I I can attest to having that anxiety come up with, because with the awareness of the softening of the belly, right? You're like, am I really gonna let the belly just hang out, right? So many women, we've been programmed, right? We got to keep the belly in, right?
Yeah.
But you know, like when we let the belly out, we do allow ourselves to just surrender and soften. Yeah, it's huge. I actually encourage everyone watching just to try it right now because it's like life changing.
Yeah.
So what do you feel inhibits our pleasure potential, and how can we expand it?
So pleasure potential, when our society, like we've really we've grown up in this punishment ethos where we make decisions based on avoidance of criticism or to, avoid pain. But if we started to allow ourselves to make decisions based on what feels good, we could really change things for ourselves. I mean, I think one of the biggest thoughts that stop our pleasure potential is, this concept of deserving. I don't deserve, therefore I will sabotage myself, whether it's conscious or unconscious. We can do this in sex. If we have these underlying core beliefs about us deserving to feel good, or maybe that this is too good to last, or we're looking for the end piece, we cap our potential for pleasure. And even more, when we start feeling that expanding sensation of pleasure in the body, which is more of this like lightness feeling that expands, and then we can literally feel it moving in the body. There's a sense of letting go that happens there. So if we struggle with control, or if we, start feeling that sensation, we might also simultaneously get anxiety, and then we'll want to clamp down. So we can either, in sex, we might find ourselves start laughing, when we start feeling good, and we're like, why am I laughing right now? And it's the body's reaction to try to contract and try to control it and tighten up again, because there's a vulnerability in that letting go. But we also see that women might experience painful sex, and they if they are,
what happened?
I'm here.
Okay, there we go.
So again, some women experience painful sex. Well, some of them have never experienced trauma, or they've never experienced, anything that they can't tie it to overtly, but oftentimes it's these underlying thoughts that cause the body to want to pull tight again, to protect itself or to maintain control, and then they'll experience the pain.
I'm curious, what is the meaning behind women that maybe cry after sex?
I love that. I would say, so crying is synonymous to an orgasm. It's the body's releasing. If we think about crying, I'm thinking about the times that I was like the most ugly crying, I'm like, there's this contraction and release that happens. Same with orgasm. There's this contraction that happens, and then, it feels so good. And the same thing with crying, how good it feels after we cry. And it's amazing when we, and if you think about it, when we're crying, right before we cry, there's this built up of pressure too. And then that release.
Yeah.
And if we allow that to happen, the more we get in touch with our emotions, what you'll see is there's also a tie with our ability to orgasm or feel pleasure. Very similar. The more we can become fully expressed, the more that we can become fully expressed in our orgasms as well. And a lot of times, the women come to me and they're like, what does it mean if I cry with my orgasm? Does that mean that this partner isn't supposed to be my partner, or something like that, or something happened? No, not at all. It's beautiful. You were able to fully let yourself go. And that is epic. I remember a partner one time after I orgasm, like mid-orgasm, I'm like crying, and he's like, oh my God, is something wrong? And I was just like, thank you. thank you so much, because he allowed for
Yeah.
a container for which I could fully let go. And I didn't have to clench or hold tight or, inhibit myself, and he could hold that. And that's like epic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I loved how I mean, the basis of this, of that deserving, because I think that's super powerful for women, not like historically even, right? So like reframing that so women understand that they are completely deserving of everything that they want, and not having to earn it. I mean, if we all lived our lives from that viewpoint, I mean, just think of what you'd create for yourself, right?
Absolutely. And I always tell
Yeah.
women, because even then it's hard for us to convince ourselves, right? Because we're like, I don't know. I still have to do all these things
Yeah.
to be of worth or be attractive. But I also suggest, okay, when you think of a woman who's really attractive to you, how do they look, or what do they embody? And a lot of times they come to, confidence, or being in their bodies, or, having fun and playful. And I'm like, yes, because to be in your own pleasure benefits everyone. It's so attractive to see a woman in her pleasure. So if we begin to allow ourselves to be there, you become a walking permission slip for every other woman to then step into her pleasure. And then you also allow, everyone benefits because they get to enjoy what you radiate. So take that into sexuality as well. If you can be in your body and your pleasure, and you get to ask for exactly that which you want, then your partner gets to enjoy that exuding pleasure energy that's coming off of you.
Yeah, I actually had an aha this year watching a belly dancer, who was actually overweight. She was overweight, but she was like in her body, and I was watching her, and I had this like awareness of like, oh my God, Nancy, it doesn't matter what your physical body looks like. It's the embodiment aspect that is beautiful and that is attractive, right?
Yeah.
And we get so caught up on the physical
Mm-hmm.
that we don't allow for that embodiment that you're talking about to even happen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's huge.
And so many of us have developed, these difficult relationships with our bodies. So I think the first step is to develop at least even a slight appreciation or a compassion piece for the body, for us to be able to even begin to allow ourselves to be in the body, because it's probably full of a lot of discomforts and a lot of, whether it's from bad diets or from self, dislike or hate, or messages of somebody calling us a slut, or our parents giving us mixed messages around our sexuality or around our body, or hide this or don't be that kind of thing. So we have to start there with that relationship, and then before we
Yeah.
can be like, okay, now I can be in this.
Yeah, and I mean, that translates all across the board. I think we can't heal our body on any level, like, until we actually have a positive, or at least neutral relationship with our body. I mean, hopefully we come to a place of love, but yeah, we can't fight ourselves to health.
Right. Even if it's just an
Yeah.
appreciation. I
Yeah.
appreciate that my body can do these things for me. So I'm going to eat foods that take care of it. Or so I'm going to go to yoga. Or so
Right.
I'll do this.
Awesome. So you have a free gift for our viewers. What is it?
I do. It's an ebook about mindful sex. So these strategies to help us to get out of our head and into the bodies. When we're engaging in sex, of course, our mind is going to wander. We're humans, and we have hundreds, we have thousands of thoughts that flow through our head all the time. But how can we anchor it back to the moment and be here now?
Awesome. And so the other ways that people can get a hold of you, I mean, they can get a hold of you through the free gift, and then you also have a podcast. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. My podcast is called Eat, Play, Sex, and it is everything related to nutrition and the body. Again, how can we be in the body? How can we optimize our hormone production, our gut microbiome? And then around sexuality and relationships. And of course, my ultimate favorite antidote to everything is play. So it's very playful and fun and light. So all these amazing experts on their fields that they talk to me. Yeah. And
Awesome.
that's the
And then
podcast.
locally you have something else, right?
I do. And people can find me more on sexloveyoga.com or Instagram
Mm-hmm.
at sexloveyoga. Here in LA, I host a women's slow flow sensual yoga experience called Undone. And it's really a yoga experience, as we were talking about, that's slower, that's more involving the sensuality and like touching our skin and getting used to the skin. Women's only, so there's a safe container, and we go through the yoga in our undergarments, whatever that means for us, so that we can really combat the images of our of these negative images of our body and celebrate it in a room full of women who are also doing the same thing, and so that we can practice to be safe in our sensuality.
That's so awesome. Next time I'm in California, I'm going to come.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you, Kat. If you were to give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I would say that your body is your best friend, and she is constantly talking to you and sharing you the exact things that she needs to help you both move forward and live optimally. That's what holds the keys to your happiness.
Yeah, the body's speaking to you. It's powerful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us and me. And I hope to cross paths with you soon.
Me too. Thank you so
And
much,
I want to
Nancy.
thank everyone that's, and thank you everyone that's watching. Make sure you tune in for the next episode. Okay, bye.